victory lap, now the reaction to the GOP health care bill that just got through the House. And at first reaction, it is not good. We're going to share personal stories from people in our area who are worried about the future of their health. Then the politics of health care. Several senators, they're already balking at the House bill, and they're Republicans. So where do we go from here? Also, another hearing on Russia. This one has former Acting Attorney General Sally Yates testifying. She's got a whole lot to say today, and a lot of it about the Trump administration with sound they don't want to hear. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and thank you so much for joining us this Monday evening. Well, it was all smiles in the Rose Garden this past Thursday, that after the House passed the Republican plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. But since then, the reaction has been just, well, pretty much universally bad. Just about anybody who's involved in the healthcare industry is against the thing. That includes the major associations representing hospitals, doctors, even seniors. The ARP, the American Medical Association, the AMA, scores of other groups are blasting the plan, even the HMOs. Plus, Republicans across the country returned to their districts, and for those who actually faced the music, they were met by protests and angry people at town halls. That includes many in our area. Here's Rodney Frelinghausen from New Jersey with a concerned constituent.
I support looking after pre-existing conditions.
He was holding my letter in his hand, yes, when he said that.
So it's called Ibrance?
Ibrance.
Ibrance. $500 a pill.
Yeah. But it's saving my life.
You feel like your congressman sold you out?
Yes, absolutely. I am furious.
And it's not an uncommon story. Here's Tom Reed, a Republican from upstate New York, taking heat about pre-existing conditions.
Everyone here deserves single-payer health care now.
The bill protects the pre-existing condition.
And here's the Hudson Valley's John Faso with an extremely concerned voter.
I have a brain tumor and a spinal condition. And when I was first diagnosed, I was kicked off my insurance because pre-existing conditions were out. I need you, as a human being, to say, I promise that we will not take this away from you.
I can tell you this.
Until...
I promise.
He made that promise in January of this year. So that was then, and this is now. This Thursday, Faso voted yes to repeal and replace Obamacare. So you decide whether he kept that promise to that woman. In about a half an hour from now, there is a town hall in Kingston, which is in Faso's district. Now, the congressman says he will not be there due to a scheduling conflict. But in a scene you're going to see very often, Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney, a guest in our program, in fact, this past week, a Democrat in the neighboring district, well, he's planning to actually be there and attend this town hall in his colleague's backyard. He is tweaking Faso on Twitter, tweeting this out, quote, "Hey, at Representative John Faso, could you turn your phones on? Your New York 19th constituents, they're calling my office at Trump Care." Now, joining us live from the Kingston Town Hall, one of those angry constituents, Catherine Joyner. She's a New Paltz resident, and she's got a pre-existing condition. Catherine, thank you very much. I appreciate you giving us a minute or two tonight.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, you've got a paraplegic condition. You take very expensive medication. You get your health coverage through your husband's job. You have a real worry right now that if Trump Care were to become law, the medicine that you need to basically survive will go away.
Absolutely. It's pretty terrifying, actually. I've been insured by my husband's company for a while now, since I've been out of work myself. And if I lose his insurance, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Did you have to deal with this before Obamacare became law?
Not the medication I'm on now, no. My condition is progressive. It's only going to get worse throughout the rest of my life.
Now, you've heard some lawmakers say, don't worry, if you got a pre-existing condition, this new plan will cover you. I know people are figuring out the details by the hour seemingly right now, but as you understand it, your personal situation, you could be out in the cold, is that right?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, no offense or anything, but I can't believe a word that comes out of our new administration's mouth. I mean, just look how many times they've lied to us that they've been caught. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, and John Faso, our congressman, is Trump's right-hand man. I mean, I am appalled that he voted the way he did.
Now, they've said that the pre-existing conditions, they'll be covered, but there's a lot of fine print attached to it. The real fear is now all of a sudden private employers, like people who will hire your husband, it's going to be optional as to whether or not they're going to, A, continue to have to cover or offer health coverage to their employees, and also, depending on the kind of package, if it will continue to cover people with conditions like yours. I assume that's the big worry right now, that and also obviously all the Medicaid cuts.
Exactly, because if I lose my husband's insurance and I have to just rely on Medicaid, I mean, come on, they're going to cut, what, $20 billion from Medicaid? I mean, I'm going to absolutely not be able to do anything anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, and remember, the condition that I had is because I was born by a chemical dump in upstate New York. So I did nothing wrong, like one of the congressmen suggested that if you live a clean health life, then you don't need insurance. I did absolutely nothing wrong except being born on the wrong side of the tracks, if you will. So, I mean, you know, it's ridiculous. I mean...
Last question from me. I know Congressman Faso is going to skip tonight's meeting. If he was there, what would you want to ask him? And do you feel, given that he said he was going to be a no vote before and he changed his mind, that he's broken his word?
I would ask him why he changed his mind, because as you saw the famous videotape with the young lady with the brain tumor, he said that he would never pass anything that did not cover pre-existing conditions. That's what he told me when I met him, and yet he still voted for it. So I really would like to ask him why he is too afraid to come out and talk to the public. We all voted. We all vote. And I personally voted for you, Mr. John Faso, and I'm very discouraged by what I see today.
Well, hopefully he's going to give an opportunity to you to communicate that face-to-face one of these days. But, Catherine, I really appreciate the time, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Let me bring in our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman. And, Andrew, we covered this or touched on at the beginning of last week. I was surprised by the fervor. We just showed around our area. This is nationally here. And it's one of these, you know, rock and a hard place. If you're a lawmaker who ducks their constituents like Faso is tonight here, you're called all sorts of things I can't even say on TV. But if you show up, and there's been incidents, there was a congressman out of Idaho, Raul Labrador, who said, nobody's going to die without the coverage. And that's become, you know, a soundbite that everyone's seen coast to coast here. They made their bed here by repealing it and replacing it with something that people think is horrible. We'll talk about the politics. But give an idea what you think are some of the themes that we're going to be hearing a lot of in the next 2 weeks, and Republicans are going to be hearing a lot of as a consequence of what they voted for.
Well, I think you're going to be hearing a slew of people's stories like the woman we just talked to with pre-existing conditions. And by some measures, that's anywhere between 20 and 50% of the American population. So everybody's impacted by this to one degree or another. And the fear is there because while they might still be able to get insurance, the cost will go up considerably. But it's not just those individual stories. It's the way that people react to hearing individual stories like that. It was difficult for me to watch that interview just because the difficulty of what she's going through. It's so easy to relate to that. And this is another one of those issues where relatability plays a role, even if you're not directly impacted.
We've talked about this before. We all know in our lives someone with cancer, a loved one. We both know children with disabilities. This will have the most adverse impact on the most vulnerable that we know. And they're white, they're black, they're Asian, they're Latino. They're everybody in suburban, rural, and cities. And to me, Andrew, the other thing is, I think the public's going to get a crash course on what Medicaid is. I think a lot of people think, oh, it's just for those poor people. It's a lot more than that.
Yeah, it does a lot more, and we'll go into a little bit more on that in the next segment, but it does provide things like special education funding in schools, and it also provides a lot of other services that a lot of folks don't realize. But look, just the grouping of people and maladies, the pre-existing conditions, women are going to, start to question whether they're going to be able to get mammograms or neonatal care as they're going through it. Planned Parenthood is going to wind up losing a bunch of funding if this goes through. Even opioids, which has become this massive epidemic, and even President Trump indicated that he was significantly focused on fighting the opioid epidemic. Chris Christie, of all people, the New Jersey governor, was at the White House a few weeks ago, and he met with Trump, and there was a little bit of sound talking about just how much the administration was going to be focused on handling the opioid epidemic.
Drug overdoses are now the leading cause of accidental death in our country, and opioid overdose deaths have nearly quadrupled since 1999. This is a total epidemic.
The most important thing to me is I think the president and I both agree that addiction is a disease, and it's a disease that can be treated. I'm so honored to work with a president who understands the value of life.
The value of life. Talk about what this bill would do to the money that would basically help do treatment for people with opioid abuse.
Well, it drives up the insurance money and the treatment money for a lot of people. There are treatment programs that will wind up being dried up.
And states use Medicaid to fund the treatment.
Rehab programs themselves are part of Medicaid. That would no longer be funded. And so the long ongoing process, there are even questions about things like Narcan, which states have worked to try to make as available as possible. But would that be insured? Would that be something that Medicaid would be able to pick up so that you could have one at your home? This will be a life and death decision for a number of people. It might not be because you don't get coverage. It might just be a choice between the pills I need to survive or making my house payments. But there will still be life or death consequences for millions of people.
And we're going to talk about the politics on the other side of the break. A quick note here before we go to break. RFL, we won an Emmy last night for where I stand. See, that's how good those commentaries were. I can't even say it. And we would like to thank, obviously, the Emmy Committee for that and all the folks here that are a part of it. Again, that was this weekend, this past Saturday night in New York. All right. Coming up next, the politics of health care. What are the chances that it'll get through the Senate, and will Republicans who voted for it pay a political price? We'll bring our panel in to talk about that and much more after this.